Shalom, shalom, shalom. First, I want to give the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodesh. Yahweh is the Most High's name, which means He is to be. Yahweh Shai is the Son's name. As always, double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers, our leaders in this truth, until our Lord Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai comes back for the hopeful elect, the remnant of the house of Israel. Shalom to brothers and sisters who have been edified by the truth of the scriptures of who we are, the true children of Israel, the Israelites, and who the other nations are. So, I'm going to give you a quick update on what's going on. Sergei Lavrov is currently in South Africa. He arrived there yesterday. And he made a very telling statement yesterday, right? Lavrov said, Russia is now almost in an all-out war with the West, right? So we've been telling you that this ain't a war between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war between Russia and NATO. NATO is the alliance of countries that are from the West. That's the war that Russia's in. Not with Ukraine. Ukraine is just a puppet in all of this that's going on. Russia is in a war with the West. So, as we've said, we are in World War III. We just haven't reached the stage where they're actually at it head on, that they can see each other's in the headlights, basically, yeah? But they're at war. NATO is directly at war with Russia. So he made this statement yesterday. So I'm going to quickly play the video for you to listen for yourself. All right? There's two things I want to talk about. And I've been speaking about this other thing for a very long time now, Turkey and NATO. I believe that Turkey is going to be expelled from NATO, right? Because Turkey also is come out publicly today to say that they are going to say no to Sweden joining NATO. And Finland said they won't join unless Sweden can join along with them. And as you may or may not know, what happened in Sweden yesterday, where they burnt the Quran outside the Turkish embassy in Sweden. So Erdogan is fuming that they allowed them to do it. It was a complete public display of what they considered freedom of speech in Sweden. So Erdogan, the president of Turkey, said today on the news this morning that he is not going to allow Sweden to join the NATO allies. And this is why I believe that Turkey is going to be expelled, because, Swedish are, they're Europeans, they're European partners. NATO would rather have people that look more like them, Europeans, than the Turks, even though the Turks are Edomites as well, just like the Swedes and the rest of those NATO allies. They're all Edomites, because the Turks are Edomites, but they came out publicly. So first we're going to start with what Lavrov said, right? Let's let the horse speak himself, right?
On Monday cast the conflict between Moscow and the West as not hybrid and almost a real war. Sergei Lavrov, speaking during a trip to South Africa, also criticized the West for sending billions of dollars of arms to Kyiv.
The goal is to destroy everything Russian, from language to culture, that has been in Ukraine for centuries, and to prohibit people from speaking their mother tongue.
South Africa is one of Russia's most important allies on a continent divided over the invasion of Ukraine and Western attempts to isolate Moscow. It says it's impartial and has abstained from voting on UN resolutions relating to what Russia calls a special military operation. South Africa initially called for Russia to withdraw from Ukraine unilaterally, but on Monday, South Africa's Foreign Minister, Naledi Pandor, said that was no longer its position.
From Russia with blood!
Outside the... Did you hear that? When South Africa was pressured at the beginning of this war, they was calling for Russia to come out of Ukraine. But as of Monday, that's no longer their position, right? As far as South Africa is concerned, Russia can do what they need to do to protect their borders because they are all part of the BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They refer to them as the BRICS. So as far as they're concerned, they can continue doing what they need to do to protect their borders. But let's listen to the rest of this.
Department of International Relations and Cooperation, where Lavrov was being hosted, protesters had gathered. People from the Ukrainian Association of South Africa waved
I love it when they said protesters had gathered. There's about a dozen people there, but that's the Western media. They will show you a dozen people that are doing something that they want to see, and they'll say it's protesters gathering there. If there was 10,000 people protesting against mainstream media, mainstream belief, and all of the lies and corruption, they would tell you that there's no protests. But that's them. There's about 12 people there, and they said it's protest. 12 people ain't a frigging protest, all right? It's not even a statement, but that's what they want to make it to believe, that there was some sort of protest outside there. But anyway, listen on.
placards and shouted slogans.
Lavrov to jail, Putin to hell.
Among them was Anastasia Kopeso.
Most of all, stop cowardly bombing our hospitals and our schools and apartment blocks.
South Africa's ruling African National Congress has historic close ties with Russia from when it was a liberation movement opposing white minority rule. The two countries and China will carry out joint military drills next month. Pandor, who has accused the West of condemning Russia while ignoring issues such as Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory, defended the drills. She said all countries conduct military exercises with their friends, and that it was the natural course of relations.
Yeah, so South Africa, China, Russia are doing military drills together this week over the next few days. The West are fuming about this because they wanted South Africa to make some sort of public statement against Russia, whereas they made a public statement for Russia. As they said, they have historic ties with Russia. When the South Africans was fighting against white supremacism that was brought in from the West, the colonization against the white South Africans, right? When it was fighting against the colonization and against white supremacists and apartheid, it was the Russians that trained Nelson Mandela, the sellout, Mr. Sellout Nelson Mandela was trained by the Russians, right? And the Russians was the ones that trained the ANC to fight against these Western Edomites, to get them out, to defeat apartheid in the country. It wasn't the British and the Americans. They were for apartheid. So South Africa are never going to turn their back on the Russians, just so you understand. So that was the first bit of news. So as you can see from the article here, Lavrov says Russia is now almost in an all-out war with the West. The Russian government continues to escalate its rhetoric as fighting intensifies in Ukraine. And as we just read, basically, as we just heard, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Russia is almost in a conventional war with the West as the Kremlin fumes at the level of support for Ukraine. These comments come at the US and European nations pledge billions in military aid for Ukraine to help the country fight off Russia's invading forces. So it says Mr. Lavrov made his remarks on Monday, which was yesterday, the 23rd of January. While on a state visit to South Africa, he said he could no longer be branded a hybrid conflict. He said could no longer be branded a hybrid. I think it should be said this conflict, and is now almost a real one. It's no longer a hybrid. He added, it is well known that we supported a proposal of Ukraine side to negotiate early in a special military operation. By the end of March, the two delegations agreed to a principle to settle the conflict. Lavrov said, it is well known that was published openly that our American, this is part of the beast, British, part of the beast, and some European country colleagues told Ukraine that it's too early to deal, and the arrangement which has almost agreed was never revisited by the Kyiv regime because they're controlled by the beast. So that's what's happening there. And the next bit of news is this, before we pull out a few scriptures.
Erdogan was at a youth rally on Saturday announcing the date of Turkey's next election. As he was speaking, a polemical Swedish activist was burning a copy of the Quran outside Turkey's embassy in the Swedish capital. Today, the Turkish president gave his response. It is clear that those who caused such a disgrace in front of the embassy of our country can no longer expect any benevolence from us regarding their application for NATO membership. We told you from the beginning that you will let terrorist organizations run amok on your streets, in your alleys, everywhere, and then you will expect us to support you in joining NATO. There's no such thing. Do not expect such support from us. That anger was also reflected in protesters outside the Swedish consulate in Ankara. The provocative demonstration in Sweden only drew a small crowd, but it was the authorities' decision to allow it to go ahead that infuriated Turkey, triggering a major diplomatic rift.
So that's the second part of the news. As you can see, Turkey are denying Sweden NATO membership. So everything's falling into place. Everything is falling into place. Just so you understand, everything is falling into place. And then, what was that? There's another bit of news I wanted to show you. Can't find it at the moment. No dramas. So let's just pull out a couple of scriptures. As we all know, Ezekiel 38 is the main one we got to go to, all right? Because what we see going on between Turkey and Russia, as I already said, this is all Bible prophecy is being fulfilled. So we've gone through this many times before, but we just do it again for edification's sake. Ezekiel 38:1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. So remember, all right, the land of Magog and Gog, which was also once upon a time the land of the Medes, is the land that Russia is in today. So to get a map of it here. This is a good map. Hold on. As you can see here, right? Magog, Gomer. I don't know if this comes up in a bigger one. Hold on. This is the land that Russia's in today. This is I believe this is the Black Sea to the left, and this is the Caspian Sea to the right. Hold on. There's a better one. Hold on. Because these are the sons of Japhet, right? These are the land that they're in today is the sons of Japhet. One second. The key. All right, we'll stick with that one because we can see it clearly anyway. All right. So this is what we know today as Russia today, Ukraine, all of the ex-Soviet Union countries all around here. Kyrgyzstan will be around here. Afghanistan will be next to Persia, which is Iran. Persia is what we know today as Iran. All right. Here, Goma. That's what we would know as Turkey today. All right. So you got Israel, Syria, and then you got Togarmah. This is what you would know as Turkey today. All right. Togarmah. So Meshech, Tubal. Let me just see if I can get another one up there for you to see. Okay, so you can say, kind of showing you the ancient map of Turkey. So you can see it. Okay, that's all right. One second. Is there a better one? I'm just trying to see. They're not all as clear as you want them to be. Togama, as you can see here, Turkey, that's Russia, Caspian Sea, Black Sea. Okay, so they're all fairly the same. So anyways, that's Turkey here, Togama, Goma. As you can see, that's the Black Sea, Mediterranean Sea. Let's see if I can pick this one up here. Hold on. I'm just trying to see if we can get you a better. Come on. Okay. So Russia's up here. This is Magog, Gog and Magog, Russia up here. Georgia, as you can see. Magog, Gog, that's Russia. That's above, that's up there. All right. Then we've got Goma, Togama down here. And this is also referred to as Togarmah, the house of Togarmah, the ex-Soviet Union states that you've got down here. So the Bible makes it quite clear, the nations that are going to come together. The chief prince of Meshech and Tubal prophesies against him. The chief prince, the word there, chief means Rus, the Rus prince, the Russian prince. So when it goes to that word, it says the chief prince. We just bring it up for edification. Rosh.
Strong's H, 7218. Ramath Negev. Ramath Negev. Second entry. Rosh.
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 Right, the chief prince, which is the Russian prince, because that word Rosh goes all the way back to the word Rosh, which is in the Bible once. Same Hebrew word. Just want to show you for edification. Goes all the way back to, oops, it's the same word, Rosh, because it has two meanings, right?
Strong's H, 7220. Rosh.
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 Same word here, Rosh, Rosh, in the Russian, in the Hebrew, sorry, which means head, which also signifies, I've showed you this many times before. It says there, Ezekiel 38 verse 2 and 3 and Ezekiel 39 and 1 of a northern nation mentioned with Tubal and Meshech, undoubtedly the Russians, right? Who are mentioned by the Byzantine writers of the 10th century under that name, dwelling to the north of Taurus. Undoubtedly the Russians. That's the land. That's the place. Magog, Gog, right? The chief prince of Magog, the Russian prince of Magog and Gog. That's what he's speaking about, all right? So let's go back here to Ezekiel. I just really wanted to just bring that one up for edification. So when it says here, the chief prince, the Rosh prince, the Russian prince of Meshech and Tubal. So it says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesies against him. Right? The chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And prophesy against him. Magog, in the land of Magog. Gog and Magog, which is what we know today as Russia or the USSR. He says, and say, thus says the Lord, behold, I am against thee, Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. So the Most High is not for the Russians, but he's going to use them to bring in the war of Armageddon, World War III. And I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses, horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. That's talking about the armored vehicles, the planes, the armored tanks, the armored cars, the drones, the land-to-air missiles, the defense missiles, everything they're going to have in their armory, they're going to come up against NATO and their allies, because this war is going to move down to the Middle East, to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. This is where the War of Armageddon is going to take place. This is where they're going to actually confront, this is where they're going to confront the Americans and the NATO allies head on. But like Sergei Lavrov said, Russia is now almost in an all-out war with the West. The West is talking about NATO. NATO is the beast, all right? That the Bible speaks of in the book of Revelations. It says, verse 5, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya with them. All of them with shield and helmet. These are the nations that are going to be in alliance with the Russians. The Ethiopians, the Persians, which are the Iranians, Ethiopia, which is Somalia, Eritrea, and Ethiopia, all right? And Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, with all of their army and their armored vehicles and cars and so forth. Goma, who's Goma? Goma is talking about Turkey. This is what we know today as modern day Turkey. Goma, Togarmah. It's mainly Goma. Goma is what we know today as modern day Turkey. See, Turkey, this is what used to be known as Goma. And it says the house of Togarmah is the rest of these, like the Armenians, the Georgians, the Azerbaijans, these ex-Soviet Union countries. So when it says here, Goma and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, all of his bands, all of their armies, their men, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all the company of that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. That's why the South Africans are not backing down, because they're going to be part of this alliance as well. That's going to come out of Africa. That's going to be backing the Russians. All right? So it says they're going to be a guard unto them, prepared unto them. This is why this thing is never going to die down, what you see happening in Ukraine. The Russians are getting battle hardened. They're getting ready for the real war, the war where they're going to face the Americans and the NATO allies head on, which is going to take place in the Middle East, in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Because something's going to happen down in the Middle East that's going to draw the Russian army. They're going to leave 1/6 part of their army back up in Ukraine, while the rest of their forces are going to come down into the Middle East, into the Valley of Jehoshaphat, to come up against the Americans and their NATO allies. That's why it says there, after many days thou shalt be visited. The Russians shall be visited. In the latter years, we are in those latter years. Thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel. So it's going to come up against America. But as the Bible tells you in Jeremiah chapter 49, the least of the flock shall draw them out. So we believe it's either Israel or Iran that's going to bring them down into the Middle East. Because remember, it's the Iranians that are providing nearly all of the drones. The Persians, which are the Iranians, they're providing all of the drones for the Russians right now. Remember, Iran, if I type in Iran drones for Russia war, they're providing all, right now, they're providing all of the drones. There you go, look. Russia receives new batch of Iranian drones. A Ukrainian intelligence official says Russia has received a new shipment of Iranian-made Sahad 136 kamikaze drones from the Islamic Republic of Iran. According to Ukraine's defense intelligence spokesman, Andrei Yusov, the new shipments is smaller than the previous one sometime in the summer that is estimated to have included at least 400 UAVs. Russia used the initial supply in October and November, but reports from Ukraine indicated that for 2 to 3 weeks, no Iranian drones were deployed from mid-November, indicating a possible shortage. This is a new batch of Shahed drones. We do not comment on its size, but we see that Shaheds were not used during yesterday's massive terrorist missile strike. So the Iranians are providing them with all of these drones. Iran's foreign minister, Hussein Amir Abdullahian, once again denied Iran was supplying drones to Russia to be used against Ukraine in a speech in Tehran on Monday, while previously he acknowledged having provided drones to Moscow before the Ukrainian war began. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in October said that Russia has ordered 2,400 of the suicide drones from Iran. So Iran has been providing them. They're already part of this war. These coalitions are already playing their part. You've got Ethiopians and Somalians that are fighting as mercenaries as part of the Wagner group in Russia. So you've got this group here called the Wagner group that are fighting in Ukraine, right? Who the US government just designated them a organized crime gang, right? Deadly and disposable. Wagner's brutal tactics in Ukraine revealed by intelligence report. That's the head of the Wagner group there. Start that. So it says Wagner group fighters have become the disposable infantry of the Russian offensive in eastern Ukraine, but Ukrainian military intelligence document obtained by CNN sets out how effective they have been around the city of Bakhmut and how difficult they are to fight against. Wagner is a private military contractor run by the oligarch Yevgeny Prigozhin, who has been highly visible on the front lines in recent weeks and always quick to claim credit for Russia's advances. Wagner fighters have been heavily involved in taking Soledar, a few miles northeast of Bakhmut, and areas around the town. Right? The Ukrainian report dated in December 2022 concludes that Wagner represents a unique threat at the close quarters, even while suffering extraordinary casualties. So this is them here, right?
We become leaders to change the world, but we can't do it alone.
These
You can
adverts.
build a legacy with UNICEF.
Hold on, just wait for this advert to finish. More propaganda, UNICEF, more UNICEF propaganda. Always like to show people of color destitute, and the real people that are destitute are them. That's more propaganda by these devils. Let's see if it's going to come straight to it.
Ukrainian officials insist the small town of Soledar has not been lost to Russian forces, despite claims by the owner of a Russian mercenary army known as the Wagner Group, which is now in control. Claims the Kremlin has been unwilling to make, instead saying only there has been a positive trend. Meantime, a CNN crew not far from the front lines of Soledar reports the sound of outgoing artillery fire and say Ukrainian troops appear to be calm.
Let's bring this
One
up.
soldier
Sorry.
saying the situation is difficult, the next 24 hours will be critical. These satellite images show homes and apartments before the battle for Soledar and what the area looks like now. The salt mining town not far from the city of Bakhmut, which has been under siege by Russian forces for weeks. Ukraine's president says the Russian offensive to control Soledar has a lot more to do with claiming a victory, any victory it seems, than any kind of strategic gain.
So that's the Wagner group, all right? We was looking at here when we was telling you, right? Persia, Ethiopia, Libya. These are all of the nations that are going to be playing a part of Russia's alliance coming up against them. The word chief, when it says here, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, the word chief goes to the Russian word, goes to the Hebrew word Rosh, right? This is it here. It's the Hebrew word Rosh. Okay, so we go to the root of the Hebrew word Rosh here. It's the same word, Rosh.
Strong's H 7220. Rosh. Rosh.
Means head. And they also know this is what it means, as I read out earlier. Ezekiel 38, chapter 2, chapter 38, verse 2 and 3, chapter 39, verse 1. A northern nation mentioned with Tubal and Meshech, undoubtedly the Russians, who are mentioned by their Byzantine writers of the 10th century under the name. So, those are the Russians. These are the lands that they're in. Gog, Magog, Togarmah. This is where they're at. This is where the Russians are at. Right? Magog, Gomer. The Turks are down here. You've got Gomer, Togarmah. Right? If we go to this other map, it's lucky, so I didn't realize you couldn't see the map earlier. As you can see here, Togarmah, Gomer. This is where we know today as Turkey. Turkey, all right? Because they are Edomites as well, the Turks, just so you understand, all right? The Turks originally come from Central Asia before they came into what they know today as Turkey, which used to be the Byzantine Empire, all right? This is where Constantinople used to be before. This used to be the capital, right? Istanbul was the capital. They changed it to Istanbul. It was called Constantinople. This was the Byzantine Empire. These Turks came from the Caucasus. They came from Central Asia, from the Caucasus Mountain, just like those Ashkenazi Jews that you see in Israel today. Gomer. So this is what we know as Turkey today, all right? Gomer, Togarmah. The Russians, the word Rosh, as it says here, undoubtedly the Russians is a northern nation mentioned with Tubal and Meshech, undoubtedly the Russians. That's the word Rosh. We go back to, let's go back here, because I was reading this out earlier, but I didn't realize you couldn't see it, so lucky for that. We go back here, and it says here, when it says the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, that's the Russian prince, the head, the Russian head prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesies against him, because the Most High is not for them, he's against them, but he's going to use them. Thus says the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, all thine army, horses, horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor. All of their military might they're going to be coming in, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, with them, all of them with shield and helmet, with their armored vehicles and armored men and soldiers that are going to be coming down. Gomer, which is Turkey. Turkey is what we know today as Gomer, all right? The house of Togarmah, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare thyself, and thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited, and in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people, coming up against America, and against the mountains of Israel, the governments of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. That's how the Russians are going to come. This war, they just been battled hardened. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. So we are seeing certain things happening. Turkey have denied Sweden membership of NATO. They burnt the Quran in front of the Turkish embassy in Sweden 2 days ago. Publicly did it, right? Because they believe in freedom of speech and what you can do and what you can say in Sweden. So they allowed this far-right man and a group of far-right Edomites to burn the Quran in front of the Turkish embassy in Sweden. The Turkish Prime Minister today, Erdogan, said he's going to decline Sweden's membership to NATO because everybody has to vote yes to allow a new member of NATO. Finland says they're not going to join NATO unless Sweden can join. So I believe, and I've said this before, that one of these reasons, something that Turkey is going to do, whether it's this, whether it's them continuing to buy defense weapons from Russia, whether it's their stance on not condemning Russia in their invasion, whatever it is, something's going to happen that's going to cause Turkey to be expelled from NATO, right? Because Turkey is going to be a part of that coalition of countries that's going to come up against America and its NATO allies, just so you understand. So we go back here. Where was we? So if we go to, I think it's Jeremiah 49. Something's going to happen down in the Middle East. I think it's Jeremiah 49. It's Jeremiah 50 at 1. 1 second. Jeremiah 49 or Jeremiah 50. Second family. I think it's Jeremiah. Might be Jeremiah 50. Maybe I'm just moving too fast. Jeremiah 49. Yeah, here I'm just moving too fast. It says, therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord that he has taken against Edom, all right, against America. Edom is symbolically talking about America and his purposes that he has purposed against the inhabitants of Teman, right? Teman is talking about the Germans. They're the most astute, cleverest ones out of these Edomites, right? Technically wise. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. The least of the flock. So we believe that's either to be Israel or Iran that's going to draw them out down into the Middle East. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So when it says surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So both of these habitations are going to be desolate. This is why we believe it to be Israel, because Israel is going to be destroyed by nuclear fire. It has to be purified by nuclear fire, the land of Israel. So when it says, surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them, with the nation that they're going to draw out into this war that's going to lead the rest of the nations. Hence why we say we believe it's Israel that's going to cause Edom, which is America, to come and defend them, that something's going to take place in the Middle East. So what we see going on in Ukraine is the Russians are getting battle hardened and in preparation for this war that's going to take place down in the Middle East. Another piece I want to go to. Okay. We go to, hold on. So we saw that. Ezekiel 39 I want to go to. Ezekiel 39 and 1 says, therefore, son of man, prophesy against Gog and say, thus says the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O Gog. He's not for the Russians, the chief prince, the Russian prince of Meshech and Tubal, because that word chief is Rosh, which goes back to the word Rus. It means head as well, all right? The head prince, which is the Russian prince. And I will turn thee back and leave but a sixth part of thee. So that sixth part that he's going to leave is the part of the army that's going to be left back in Ukraine. He says, now we'll turn thee back. He's going to turn the Russians back. He's going to bring them back to that old Soviet power and leave but a sixth part. And I would what? And cause thee to come up from the north parts, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel, the governments of Israel. So when we go back to Jeremiah and we say, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out, we believe that to be Israel. That's going to draw out Edom, America. Because the Russians are going to be coming down on Israel for whatever reason. We don't know yet. But 1/6 part of the army is going to be left back in Ukraine, in that battlefield in Ukraine, to keep hold of what parts they would have conquered by the time they come down to Israel. And he says, now will cause thee to come up from the north parts. So 1/6 part of the army is going to be left back in Ukraine, back in Russia, a 6th part of their army, and the rest of the military is going to come down from the north parts. And I will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel. They're going to be coming down. This is Israel down here. Gog and Magog. This is where they're coming. The word mountains just means summit. The word summit means government, you know. So when they was at the G7 meeting, they call it a G7 summit. The top of a mountain is referred to as a summit. So that is just metaphoric language when it says to bring it down upon the mountains of Israel. It's talking about the governments of Israel, the summit of Israel, the government. So that's the end game. So everything is warming up to this. There's one more. Everything is warming up for this, basically. For this place here, in Jehoshaphat. And I will gather all nations, and I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, which means Yahweh's judgment, because that's where all the nations are going to be judged. And I will plead with them there for my people, the true children of Israel, and for my heritage, Israel, not the world or anyone believes, but the true and only the elect. Not all of Israel, just the elect of the children of Israel, whom they have scattered amongst the nations and parted my land. The land of Israel is parted between the Palestinians and the Israelis, between the Edomites and the Ishmaelites. This is the final battle. So everything's happening. Everything's moving at its right pace. Everything. We continue to tell you about the digital currencies and the mark of the beast that will be in place before this war takes place. But everything is in place for this. Sorry, that was a spirit that brought me there, but I wasn't meant to go there. It says, and he calls all great and small, rich and poor, free and bond to receive a mark in his right hand over his forehead. The mark is charagma, which is a microchip. That was a spirit. I wasn't trying to go there. I was meant to go to Revelation 16 and 16. Because this is the final outcome. And he gathers them together, all of the nations, into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. The word Armageddon, means mountain. That's the Hebrew word for mountain. Geddon means troops. So if we look at, let's just quickly show you. Revelation 16 and 16. Because it's 2 words there, all right? So into the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon, Har, Arm. I'm going to show you.
Strong's G717, Harmageddon. Harmageddon.
So if we go to this one, there you go. So that's Har, that's the first part of the word, Har, which means hill, mountain, hill, country, mountain, mount, right? And then that's the first part of Harmageddon. If we go to the second part of the word, Megeddon or Geddon, it means, so here it says place of crowds, right? Megiddo, Megiddon. If we go to the root, Geddon, as you can see, where is it? To penetrate, to cut, to attack, to invade. Here you go. To gather in troops or crowds. So the word Armageddon basically means mountain of troops. So what does the word mountain mean? Summit, governments. So all of the different governments, mountains, which is symbolic for the word governments, their troops are going to be brought down to this battle for Revelations 16 and 16. They're all going to be brought down. That's what it says in the Hebrew tongue, called Harmageddon, in the Hebrew tongue. So we go to the Hebrew meaning of this word, and it means mountain of troops. The word mountain just means summit. The word summit is symbolic for governments. So all of these troops, all these different governments are going to be brought down to this place called the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Yeah. Jehoshaphat means Yahweh, that means Yahweh judges. That's where they're going to be gathered. So everything we see happening and saying, all of this talk, when the Russians say, when Lavrov said yesterday, Russia is now almost in an all-out war with the West, that's where they're at. That's where they're at, because they're getting ready for the big one. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to leave it there. I could have gone into much more. Salaki, sorry for earlier. I didn't realize you couldn't see what I was showing you earlier and that. But thanks for that, Annette. I didn't realize. So I pray you are edified by today's edification. Russia says now in an all-out war with the West. And Turkey says no NATO to Sweden. Beautiful. Everything is laying out how it's supposed to be. So as always, I want to give the praise and the glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers, our elders, and Salaki to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers out there that are plowing the fields in the name of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. As always, keep praying, keep safe, and hold on to this truth, man, because I'm telling you, we are at the door. We are at the door. Believe me when I tell you we're at the door. Well, praises and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls God and Jesus Christ. Shalom, 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 family. All praises.